Hello sir, this is the second lab exercise of network protocol labs wherein we will be configuring IP address for a given scenario for a given set of topologies. Before entering into the lab exercise, I would like to discuss regarding the IP addresses, subnet and subnet mask. The various IP addresses that are currently available, which can be simulated using a Cisco packet tracer. We have 5 different topologies, namely star, mesh, tree, ring and bus. I'll start with the simple one, which is the bus topology. So to start with bus topology, I'll be starting with the end devices first. So for end devices, I'm collecting in the PCs. I'm going to add in 4 different PCs which will be connected to 4 different switches. So I'm connecting them to the basic PT switch or even a 29601. To connect them, I'm going to be giving an auto connect. First connect the switches. So it is not ready still. After connecting the switches, when it changes from amber to green, we'll be connecting the PCs available there. For PC connection, it will be as copper straight through. A bus topology is the one which is very simple and then straightforward topology wherein the PCs are directly connected to end switch and switches are interconnected to each other. So here, as we can see, everything is ready with the green symbol. So I'll be configuring the IP addresses for the PCs. Switches need not have an IP configuration because it just routes the gateway to each other. Subnet mask will get auto updated. I'm not giving a default gateway here since I'm not using any router, but in case we use a router to configure to make 2 different bus topologies talk to each other, then we will be giving a router gateway here. Similarly for PC1, desktop IP configuration, it is 192.168.1.2. Subnet mask will get auto updated, and coming down to PC3 is 192.168.1.2. So now we have connected 4 different PCs to 4 different switches. To verify whether it is working, we'll just drop a packet from one PC to another PC. As it is visible, it is successful. This is how a bus topology works. Moving on to the next topology, which is the star topology. So star topology, what happens is a switch is connected to various end devices. So I'll start with the switch first. I'm putting an PT switch, which is the basic switch here. And now before moving on to connecting to end devices, or rather connect the end devices, wherein I'm going to connect 6 different PCs for a star. A switch usually contains only 4 different connectivity together. So in order to include 2 more wherein I've been putting in star topology. I have to first switch off the switch, add in 2 more configurations. This is a fast Ethernet interface for use with copper media, which I am including now, and then switch on, switch again. Let it auto configure. I'll be adding, I'm connecting the PCs to the switch now. I'm using an auto connection so that I don't have to click each and every particular cable. Fast forwarding a bit so that it gets, now it is all configured. Now I need to assign the IP address for that. IP address, I'll go to the desktop IP configuration. I start with 192.168.1.1. Subnet mask is going to be auto updated. Similarly for PC1, desktop IP configuration 192.168.1.2. Desktop IP configuration again 192.168.1.3. Now that I have configured the IP for all the PCs together through the switch, I'll be dropping a packet from PC1 to PC3. As it is visible, it is successful. That means we are able to connect a switch to different PCs. The formation of this is called in star topology. Now moving on to the next topology, which is the ring topology. Ring topology is nothing but an interconnected devices, all of them together. So for that, I'm going to pick in 4 different PCs. Similarly, 4 different switches. Now before connecting the end devices, we need to connect the switches first. After connecting the switches, you can see that this is formed in ring. After connecting the switches, we need to connect the systems to the switches correspondingly. I'm sorry about that. Fast forwarding a bit so that all the connections are available. Waiting for this one alone to get on. When it gets auto updated, let me configure the IP addresses directly. I start with IP addresses as static. Similarly for PC2, desktop IP configuration is 192.168.1.2. For PC3, desktop IP configuration 168.1.3. Now that I have assigned IP address to all the PCs, I'm gonna drop a PU to see whether the connection has been established or not. As visible from the status, it is successful, wherein I am able to pass in an PU from PC0 to PC3 connected through a ring topology. So the connection, when it is interconnected all of the switches together, this is called a ring topology. Now moving on to the next topology, which is your tree topology. Tree topology is nothing but the topology in where when the switches form the tree type of format. So forming two different branches, and for this particular switch I am again forming two different branches. For this particular switch I am just going to be transferring only one branch. Now I need to connect the end devices out there, so I am going to connect PCs to all the switches correspondingly. After making the end devices, we will first connect these switches. So switch 0 to switch 1 will be connected, switch 1 to switch 3 and switch 4 will be connected. Similarly from switch 0 to switch 2 and from switch 2 to switch 5. So this forms the switch connections, after which I will be forming the PC's connection to the corresponding switches. PC1 connected to switch 1, PC2 connected to switch 3, PC3 connected to switch 4, PC4 connected to switch 2 and PC5 connected to switch 5. Fast forwarding a bit so that it is auto configured. Now after making the topology, I will be assigning the IP address to each and every of the PCs assigned here. Desktop IP configuration, it will be as 192.168.1.2. The subnet mask gets auto updated. As I already discussed during the IP class configuration, the subnet mask is varying for, this is an C class IP configuration. That's why this subnet mask is varying only at the last bit. .192.168.1.4. And then the last PC, which is IP configured as 192.168.1.6. Now, in order to test whether the topology is successful or not, I'm going to drop a PU from PU0 to PC3. As visible here in the simulation mode, it is successful. So, I'm able to pass in PU from PC0 to PC3 successfully. And now moving on to the next topology, which is your mesh topology. In mesh topology, the information of the switches is interconnected and the end devices are not interconnected in that fashion. So it forms a mesh altogether. So first I'll form the switches. I'll be taking 4 different switches. And then corresponding end devices of them. So I'm going to add in PC for each of them. So now here, auto connecting the switches first from switch 0 to switch 3 and then switch 3 to 1 to switch 2. So this basically forms your ring topology. Mesh topology will differ in terms of having an interconnection between each and every switch of them. So when a switch 0 is connected, it is connected to all the other 3 switches which are there in the LAN network. That's why this is called a mesh topology. Now after connecting the switches, we will be connecting the PCs. So PC 0 I am connecting to switch 1, PC 1 I am connecting to switch 2, PC 2 to switch 3, and PC 3 to switch 1. For configuration of IP addresses, I'm going to give an class C. IP configuration and then 192.168.1.2. Get auto updated. It's 192.168.1.3. And then for the fourth PC, I'll be giving the IP configuration as 192.168.1.4. After configuring the IPs, let's drop in PU to verify whether the configuration is being successful or not. So I'm going to pass in PU from PC0 to PC2. As visible, the successful status has come for the simulation point of view. Now, apart from this, all 5 topologies available, there is other 2 topologies, which is hybrid topology and wireless topology. When it comes to wireless topology uses a particular DHCP IP addressing, wherein it gets the IP addresses get auto updated at that particular amount of time. Before moving on with wireless, I will first give in the other example of hybrid topology. So what happens is, this is a mesh topology which is available. So I'm going to add in a simple ring topology to this together. For that, I'll be adding just 4 switches.